I mean, we will all experience some gap or some, emotion that's going to make us not want to continue writing. Like we're going to
Right.
keep facing hurdles. Just don't let that become a thing. Keep
Right.
writing, whether it makes sense or whether it doesn't make sense. Just keep putting words in your document, and then after that, you can continue reviewing it.
Rumi said, sell knowledge by imagination.
Wow.
Yeah.
And people get astonished because people say, no, 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 we are growing up in a world where more knowledge is good. Yeah, more knowledge is good, but that knowledge belongs to everybody. You don't have any
Correct.
proprietary strength. But imagination is yours. You are the creator. There is no limit
Right.
to building your imaginative power.
So, Tejaswini, tell me, this is your first book, and if you had to choose one, the most fun part about writing fictional book, what would that be?
Is such a creativity, it has no bounds. That's like the
Hmm.
best part about writing fiction. Although, like
Yeah.
in the case of historical fiction, you will definitely have to keep with the times.
Yeah.
That's like the only restriction I see, but you can also convert that to your advantage. Anything
Right.
in fiction can be converted to your advantage because it's some area that you've not explored, or it's even if it's explored, you'll
Right.
be able to grow more on it. So there's just a lot of potential when it comes to fiction books. That's why the first book that I wanted to write was fiction. It just
Right.
immediately, yeah, I immediately sort of go with it.
Correct. And
It's
Rakesh,
my choice of work.
correct. Hey, I just wanted to drop in and say कि अगर आप ये वीडियो एंजॉय कर रहे हो तो सब्सक्राइब करना मत भूलिएगा. Now you can continue watching the episode. Rakesh, for you, is there any one thing which you would pick as your favorite part about writing fictions?
Uh, why was fiction created? Fiction was created because, strangely, it is a better carrier of the grand truths
Correct.
Yeah,
that facts alone cannot convey.
definitely agree with that.
So, if you're dealing with a grand civilization like India,
Mm.
as a journalist, your focus is necessarily in the moment, and the facts about that moment and getting those facts right is very important.
Right.
But how do you convey the grand truth that is experienced and extracted from the human journey that spans 5,000 years? When Pandit Vishnu Sharma wrote the Panchtantra, and he propagated a simple statement: the world is a family. That's something that took thousands of years' journey to come to that
Mm.
beautiful statement. That even
Right.
today, when prime ministers of India go, they say, in India, we maintain the world is a family. Is that a fact or is that a fiction? So
That's a fact.
that's why you write fiction. You write
Right.
fiction so that people who live in the moment can benefit from the thousands of years of human journey that came
Right.
before them. And as a writer, your craft is to extract the rust, the juice. That's why when Professor Sheldon Pollock, he's the guy who Narayan Murthy's son gave $50 million to
Yeah.
translate the Indian classics from Sanskrit. Very good guy at Columbia University. some controversies. When he was asked, what is it that is India's one contribution that is unequaled anywhere else in the world? He said it is India's theory of aesthetics, Ras, aesthetics,
I agree. Yeah.
Ras. And that's what fiction does. Fiction creates the Ras.
Correct.
Ramayan, the Ras you experience when you see Lord Ram kill Lord Ram,
Right.
not Lord Ram kill the demon Ravan.
Ravan. Yeah.
Mahabharat, the Ras. The whole country came to a stop when they were screening
Right.
Mahabharat every week. उसको कहते हैं रस, क्योंकि रस resonates with the essence of what you are.
Correct.
And that is fiction.
Right. And I feel that stories are really important, especially in country like ours, where there are so many people, there are so many cultures, and to keep us, in one bounded state, you need stories where stories like Mahabharat, where the whole country came to a stop, there was a huge war going, and it is not even like there's one right, side. The both side had their own perspectives. So the stories have really rich sort of, deeper understanding. And that's really beautiful about it. And because of authors like you, I get to read such amazing stories as well. That is why fiction is one of my, especially the historical fiction in India, it is one of my favorite genre to read.
Ours too, right?
Definitely. It definitely is. There's so much that so many people have to provide. So
Right.
you get different perspectives of various events, and that's what makes it even more interesting.
So, if I had to ask both of you to suggest, I mean, like 2 or 3 maybe historical fictions from India, what would those books be? Or authors, like your favorite authors in that genre?
Okay, so people that I used, excuse the banging. The floor upstairs is there's some renovation going on, so you're gonna keep hearing some hammering. Um, all right. So one of my favorite authors who I've used as inspiration for my book has definitely been Chitra Divakaruni. And then there was Amish Tripathi. There was Devi Yashodaran, whose book really, it resonated with me because she also wrote about the Chola Empire.
Yeah, correct.
Except that she put her own little twist. So she used Empire, her book, and I fell in love with that. And I decided, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to approach the story. So she essentially kickstarted this entire idea for me. And the reason why I'm so into books or into historical fiction in India, especially Southern India, that's exactly why. It was her book. So you can read, you can definitely read those recommendations of mine. There's obviously many more. Rakesh, why don't you let us know?
There are so many historical fictions. I mean, these two whole side are like completely historical fictions.
I can see.
Yeah,
Amish
Tripathi. There are many there. So, Rakesh, can you give us some suggestions from your side as well?
Yeah, so I'm a classicist, and so you won't be surprised. Uh, I would recommend first that people read the Panchtantra.
Yeah.
It's surprising. We all sort of know about it, but people haven't read. Number two, again, very short, I would read Kalidasa's The Cloud Messenger, Meghdut poem.
Okay.
He is India's greatest poet ever. And the Meghdut poem is the first poem that, from a literary point of view, came up with this innovation of travel poetry. So it was the first travelogue in the world because the cloud is a traveler. And it gives you a picture of India that is really quite amazing. And the third book, and it's surprising. Yes, we have seen the TV serial. Yes. Most people have not read the Mahabharata.
Correct.
Please. Take the time. If there's one book before we all say goodbye to our existence, then we should be able to say we have read the original. It's a Mahabharata. It's the story to end all stories.
Right.
And those would be my three recommendations.
Awesome. So Mahabharata is actually like whichever video I am making on books, Mahabharata is always there. And all the authors with whom I have spoken till date, they suggest reading Mahabharata because they got to learn a lot from Mahabharata because of the writing style, the way the whole story is intertwined. If you go deeper into each character, you see the character arcs as well. So
Yeah.
it's actually a good practice. And talking about practice, Tejaswini, you have released your debut novel. Rakesh, you have done 2 novels already. You have a clear idea of how a book is made and then gone into the market and how people perceive it. Can you give like your tips to those writers who are maybe in the writing process of their first book now?
Yeah, I mean, my strong recommendation is that don't be synthetic. Don't be synthetic. Uh, Start with something that is a pukar within you. That is something that you're actually experiencing, and that you know better than anybody else. You have to have mastery not only of your ichha shakti, your desire to write, but you have to have the gyan. And if you've got the right ichha shakti driving you, and if you got the gyan and the mastery of that subject, then the kriya, the actual creation, is actually relatively easy. The problem is people have a very superficial emotional relationship with their primary subject, and then they construct things that then are very obviously artificial, and those are not sustaining. And the best story I give about Ichha Shakti is this. You're being a creator, as Tejaswini talked very beautifully about the creative process that she follows. You're being a creator. The universe was created by somebody, whatever name you want to give him or her. What's the difference between you, the creator, and the creator of the universe?
Right.
There's only one thing that differentiates you. It's the big creator, the big C, his willpower versus our willpower. He obviously has unbound willpower, so his creation sustains. And we are human and limited, so our creation doesn't sustain. But the learning is still there. If you want to create something and you want it to sustain and you want it to propagate, you have to bring immense willpower, ichha shakti, to that subject. That desire has to be there. And then you have to bring the gyan for it. And then the creation happens automatically. That becomes the easiest part.
Correct. Beautiful. And Tejaswini, for you, what would be that one tip you would like to give every budding writer right now?
We all experience these blocks, writing blocks.
My
Whether
next
a
question
new
was going to
writer
be
is
about writer's block. So it's a good thing
good thing I targeted it now.
Yeah.
I mean, we will all experience some gap or some, emotion that's going to make us not want to continue writing. Like, we're going to keep facing hurdles. Just don't let that become a thing. Keep writing, whether it makes sense or whether it doesn't make sense. Just keep putting words in your document, and then after that you can continue reviewing it, because once you stop writing, you completely lose your flow. And whatever it is that you want to write, however it is that you want to frame your story, that doesn't fulfill, that doesn't come out well or according to your vision. So just don't stop writing at the end of the day, because that's what you want to do, and devote your time towards it. Devote a good number of hours to it. I'm not sure how long you can sit and write for, but I can go on for quite long. Depends on person to person. So just don't stop writing and keep pushing yourself every day. Just try improving yourself. Doesn't matter whether you know a subject, whether you don't know a subject, there's always room for improvement, there's always room for learning. So
100%.
you can learn, you can improve, you can continue writing.
Right. And Rakesh,
Yeah.
you have a lot of experience now. How do you deal with writer's block? First of all, do you get into that zone of writer's block often, or it is like you not have, like, you don't up till now you haven't touched that block? Because a lot of writers tell me writer's block is a unreal thing. So what is your perspective on that?
Yeah. So remember, I talked about some very simple, I call it a life hack. I shared this life hack in Dawn at the end because this was our civilization's great discovery, which is how do you strengthen your kalpana shakti? How do you strengthen your imagination? People, when they write and they experience writer's block and they stop, what has happened? Essentially, your imagination, your kalpana shakti has disappeared. It has completely disappeared on you. And the answer to that is very simple in terms of how do you strengthen your imagination. And I'll give a small lesson here, which I was asked to give a talk because I'm an Indian Institute of Technology graduate. So this technology institute had called me to give a talk, and I said, you guys are probably wondering, you want to go and start a machine intelligence company and become a unicorn and make $1 billion. You're probably wondering, why do I have to listen to a storyteller? And I told them about Albert Einstein. And Albert Einstein had given a talk at Princeton, and a woman came up to him and said, Professor Einstein, I want my son to grow up like you. What should I do? Yeah. And Einstein said, Madam, read him a lot of stories, many, many stories. And what he was trying to say was that even in science, in life, it's not about writer's block, it's about life. Okay. You need imagination. So develop your power of imagination. And the great thing about India is we actually have the technologies that are remarkably simple. Or how do you improve your imagination, not just for writing, but for life? That's what it was all about.
Correct.
So no, I don't experience writer's block.
Yeah, I was going to just ask you that. But then if someone is going through writer's block, how can they find their inspiration? I should not say writer's block, I should say creative block. How should they find their inspiration again?
Well, there's a very simple technique. One very simple technique is that don't laugh, just write. One very simple technique is before you start writing, take a very fragrant flower and breathe deep its fragrance. For some people, another technique is take a piece of chocolate and nibble it. Yeah. Now, what's the technology? Now, you'll be quite surprised. This technology of smelling a flower, of taking chocolate, was actually written by Hasavantha, who was a commander-in-chief of Kashmir's military forces.
Wow.
And he gave these simple techniques. I told you my techniques are very simple. Yeah. Now, the thing that happens is when you smell a flower or when you take chocolate, there is intense sensory overload, right? Do you agree? Right. Intense sensory overload. But that's besides the point. After that sensory overload, the mind goes back and settles down.
Right.
That state is called the dying of cognition. Meaning you had intense stimuli And now, by contrast, you're going through a dying phase,
Right.
which is complete relative absence of stimuli. The moment your mind comes to a state of rest, it becomes creative.
Right. And this is the smelling technique
That
is also a
distraction is
mindfulness
gone.
technique, right?
Huh?
The smelling
What's it?
technique is a mindfulness technique as well, right?
These are technologies. They are universal.
Yeah.
So one can put any label. It doesn't matter. I'm giving the technological secret.
Yeah.
The technological secret is you have a mental block because your mind is distracted. So you
Hmm.
have to create an experience that then leads to the dying of the mind so it settles down quickly. And the
Correct.
moment it settles down on you, you watch, your creative energies will start flowing.
Beautiful. Yeah. Awesome. Um, Tejaswini, you have written first novel. Obviously, the whole journey has taught you a lot in many ways, I'm sure. I
Yeah.
believe that whenever you put out a piece of content, you're putting out a chunk of your knowledge of your own mind out there, and in that process, you are gaining double the amount of knowledge for yourself as well. So,
Yeah.
what would be one thing which you would give up now to become an even better writer?
The one thing I'd give up right now.
Yeah.
That's difficult. Um, I don't think I'll have to give up anything in order to become a better author. I feel I have the material that I need
Yeah.
to become a better author. I have my imagination, I have direction, I have ambition, I have all of these. I have all of these factors. So I feel like if I drop one, it's going to negatively affect me.
Right.
So, knowledge is essential. Ambition, I definitely need if I have to write a series. Direction, obviously, plays into like one of the most important parts of writing a series is direction.
Correct.
Um, yeah, so essentially, I don't think I'd want to give up, but I'd want to improve on everything, like how I get my knowledge, where I get my direction
Yeah.
from, how I'm going to proceed with the series. All of these questions I can answer with some things that are already existing. If I have to become a better author, I think I'll have to add more and not lose more.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I mean that's the idea. That's what I feel.
Correct. And Rakesh, for you, is there any one thing which you would give up to become a better writer?
Uh, First, in terms of becoming a better writer, what is it I want and what am I seeking? I am constantly seeking to make my writing simpler and simpler and simpler. So if you look at the great writers like, in English, like Ernest Hemingway, The Old Man and the Sea, or you look at Herman Hesse, The Heart. I mean, these novels are written remarkably uh, in a sparse language.
Correct.
And so, if I had a wish, it would be that I wish I could find a way to find a group of young kids to whom I could tell stories. That would be my great desire, because to connect with young kids, to tell them stories that actually they engage with, means you're gaining mastery of how to express powerful things in a very
Right.
simple way. So that's right now, as a writer, the challenge that I'm facing. Now, what would I give up? I think the best line for that is Rumi the poet's line. And people always get astonished when I say this particular line. Rumi said, "Sell knowledge, buy imagination."
Wow.
Yeah.
And people get astonished because people say, no, 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 we are growing up in a world where more knowledge is good. Yeah, more knowledge is good, but that knowledge belongs to everybody. You don't have any
Correct.
proprietary strength. But imagination is yours. You are the creator. There is no limit
Right.
to building your imaginative power. And Tejaswini is lucky. She's starting at a very young age and she's excelling and doing so well. More power to her. I look forward to her gaining in strength. And so I actually want to reduce even further my knowledge component, and I want to grow my imagination component. Yeah.
Beautiful. Growing your imagination, your curiosity is something which is, string of this whole podcast. Till date, I have done many podcasts, and every guest who comes here, they tell me, like, I ask them, give me some life tips. And one tip which is common in everyone is they tell me to never let your curiosity die, your imagination die. And that is exactly what
Definitely.
you have said as well now, which is really beautiful. I have one last question for both of you.
Just may I just
Yeah,
interrupt
yeah,
in a
sure.
second?
Sure, sure, sure.
Just may I interrupt?
Yeah.
In India, in our history, we have gods. And
Hmm.
one of the gods that people know about is Indra.
Right.
And Indra is very similar to Zeus and other gods around the world. His weapon is the lightning. And it may surprise you that in all ancient civilizations around the world, the most powerful god, his weapon is a lightning bolt. So, in that sense, Indra reflects a universal theme.
Correct.
But here is the difference. Here is the difference. India is the only place where this god, the god with lightning power, has a mount. He travels.
Yeah.
And the mount is an elephant. It's a white elephant.
Yeah.
But it's not just a regular white elephant. It's not like Durga on a tiger. No, no, no. This elephant has 5 trunks and 10 tusks. So you see, even in the small thing, our writers reveal the power of imagination. हाथी बना दिया, उसके 10 दांत है, 5 नाक है. I mean, this was just a way to keep the reader's mind filled with wonder.
Right.
That's what you're trying to create wonder.
Correct. Beautiful. So, actually, I said I had one question. Now I have two. I was going to ask you firstly to suggest maybe 3 books which everyone should read once in their lifetime. But before that, since you were talking about imagination, curiosity, and you both are authors, so I'm sure you have read a ton of books as well. Why is reading important for anyone?
It creates more than it's not just used for imagination, or you can do a bit of light reading as well. It's not just a leisure activity. At the end of the day, you're viewing someone else's perspective on life. You're viewing someone else's you can say their soul, because a bit of their writing, obviously their writing would dictate their voice. You'll be able to hear an author through their work. You're experiencing so much in just a single room. You're traveling worlds, you're viewing eras, and you're gaining deeper understanding of people and of tradition, of culture, everything that you would never probably experience when it comes to either a series or a movie or anything of that sort, because it's not that indulgent. It doesn't pull you in and
Correct.
hold you there.
Yeah.
So in a sense, like, why people need to read a book, it's because they're going to learn so much more, and they're going to be exposed to so much more, and
Right.
they'll find better ways, like in characters, in simple lives. Like if you're looking at non-fiction books, even when it comes to autobiographies and stuff,
Right.
lessons you can learn from certain characters, fiction, non-fiction, whichever genre of book you choose, you'll always be able to learn something from a character or a situation, what you should do, how you shouldn't respond. Because you will always come across a scene in any book, we'll be like, oh crap, the person shouldn't have said that. Now look at the situation they've landed up in. So how do you approach certain things, like certain obstacles that come in your life? You will be exposed to all of that when you read more. There's this growth, like exponential growth once you start reading.
Yeah.
That's probably the best part about why people need to read.
Right. I agree. I agree like completely with whatever you said right now. Reading is a growth process. You grow when you read. Rakesh,
Definitely.
is that same for you?
So that's a great question because it's actually you put your finger on actually a very serious problem. The problem is people nowadays don't read.
Correct.
Yeah.
They're not reading. Let's not be confused. Uh, uh, Everybody has to recognize they don't read. Just because you read Instagram post or Facebook post or a newspaper article, that is not reading. That is not
Yeah.
sahitya at all.
Correct.
So, reading, true reading, has a very different purpose in mind. And I go back to what Sahitya's standards are. Sahitya's standards are that when you read a literary creation, it should move the body, move the mind, move the heart, and move the spirit.
Right.
If that has not happened, then you have not done reading. Maybe you've done information gathering, you've done information processing, but you've not done Sahitya. Let's be very clear about that. Now, why do you do Sahitya reading? Why do you want to create this movement of the body, the heart, the mind, the spirit?
Right.
Very simple. As you get older, and you had mentioned earlier, you lose your childlike curiosity. So something that came naturally, you lose it. So unless you exercise that in a disciplined manner, what will happen? Your mind becomes closed.
Correct.
What's worse, your heart becomes closed. Your spirit becomes rigid. And that rigidity, what is rigidity? Rigidity is death,
Right.
and fluidity is life. So you read because it gives you life, it gives you fluidity, it takes you in a world, if you have the right one, that can grow your mind, that can grow your heart, make you more compassionate, make you into a more beautiful human being,
Correct.
that can make you, in terms of your spirit, into a person who recognizes that you can be unbounded. That's what Sahitya is as far as we Indians are concerned. And to deprive yourself of Sahitya, to deprive yourself of that reading, is the biggest punishment you can inflict on yourself. Biggest punishment.
Yeah.
That's all one can say.
Correct. So, like one last thing to ask both of you. And again, Zoom is showing me the time limit, so we'll make this quick. If you were to give two books to anyone that you meet in your life from now on, which would be those two books, except for your own books now?
I was gonna say my book first, so showing that it could begin a journey. If I
That
can
can
do
be
it,
the
you
third
can
book.
too. Two books that I would definitely recommend would, I mean, the books that kind of started my journey into why I wanted to write, hands down, Harry Potter series. Any book from the Harry Potter
Beautiful.
series. And after that, it went to Greek mythology. And so there was Greek mythology fiction. So that's definitely Rick Riordan's the Percy Jackson series. I mean, two things that sort of made me want to write fiction for young adults. That's what pushed me into it. It gave me direction. So definitely two books from either of the series.
Awesome. Those are my favorite books as well. Rakesh, what would be your two suggestions?
So I think I've already given three names from India,
Yeah.
so I will now give two names from Western literature. Uh, I think if it comes to literature, then one book certainly should be from the Greek classics,
Hmm.
and I would, pick. Uh, I'd pick the
Iliad
Iliad or the
or
Odysseus.
yeah.
So that would be one book that I would pick that I think should be on everybody's must reading. And then I would pick The Prince, which is a very short story designed for younger minds, but older minds get as much out of it as younger minds. The Prince is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful story. So those would be the two I would pick.
Awesome. So yeah, this is the end of this podcast. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming on the show. I'll link both of your books down in the description. So anyone who is listening this on Spotify or on YouTube, you can buy Rakesh's book or Tejaswini's book. I'm sure you will enjoy both the books. I'll show you books once again. These are like really amazing books. You should definitely go ahead and check these out. So yeah, Rakesh, Tejaswini, thank you once again for coming on the show.